I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about Christmas in the 18th century, just because when people come here, they might see the exterior decorations, they see these beautiful wreaths with all this dried fruit on them, and they just didn't do that in the 18th century. Decoration-wise, we only have a few print sources that really suggest holiday decorations. Those prints show often little vases that are, quite small actually, they're not big, that would have just, been put on the mantle, and they would have just had a few sprigs of holly in them. You don't really see mistletoe in a private home like we do today, but in taverns, they would do things like hang a big branch of mistletoe in a public room where maybe dances would go on and things like that. And then they would also place little sort of sprigs of holly in the windows. And then they would just sort of fill the different glass panes, and that was it. That was basically it for decorations. I looked at lots of photographs from our archives here, and I think what they've mostly changed is, from the 1930s especially, we saw lots of floral arrangements in the center of tables throughout the historic area. Lots of fruit, magnolia leaves everywhere, giant candelabra in the center of all these rooms. So it was supposed to really impress you, wow you, pyramids of apples, it was very opulent. But they didn't look at table settings from the 18th century, because if you do, you see that everything has to be symmetrical and it has to be practical. And things like having fresh fruit in pyramids, that would just be for decoration. You would have eaten those fruits. You would have savored them in the 18th century. You wouldn't have used them in some kind of snake-like design, for a centerpiece in your table. But now that our main focus is really to, not just to wow our visitors with beautiful interiors, but to also show and represent how people lived in the 18th century. This year, what we kind of came up with was that a ball was about to be set up for that evening. So what we did was, we kind of wanted it to look like the servants were working really hard to kind of get each room ready to receive, hundreds of guests that Lord Dunmore and Lady Dunmore would have had that night. So we do lots of card tables in the parlor, but not have like an actual card game going on. We kind of, show stacks of cards and candlesticks and things like that being set up. And then we moved to the dining room where punch would have been set up. So we're showing the servants making punch. We show nutmeg and cinnamon and lots of different types of fruits being used to actually, make the punch. Then you can move into the supper room where there's this huge dinner laid out. But this year we decided, instead of just having a static dinner that's already laid completely, we chose to put a beautiful silver apron in the center of two tables that are connected, and just show stacks of plates and flatware and all those things that you would need to serve many, many people. And the apron is just filled with sweetmeats. So it looks like the servants are starting to put like the dried fruit and the nuts all in the baskets that are there. So I think it's exciting, and it doesn't, some people like to see a perfectly laid out table, but I prefer our interiors to look a little messy. I think they look a little bit more lived in that way. I know a lot of people, they might come into our buildings, see new interior decorations and probably go, oh, that probably didn't take very long. But it actually takes us a few months to prep for each change. We have to pull the antiques that are needed for each interpretation. We first have to have kind of a prep meeting. We have to figure out, well, what will the table look like? What will each room have in it? What objects are needed? And then it's kind of like a circus. Conservation has to get involved. They show up. They help us move objects so that we can get to other objects. It's quite a process, and we have a team of curators that do it. It's not just me. We have to have our metals curator present, our ceramics and glass curators, our historic interiors collections care team, and they clean the objects and take care of every antique in all of our buildings. So without all of them, I don't think we could do it. It's a long process, but one that I'm very glad takes place, because we really want the interiors to look as authentic as possible.